Alrighty, welcome back everybody to our latest live stream. I hope everybody's having a good morning so far. You're currently witnessing history because I've actually never done a live stream before noon before, but we have a lot to get to in this live stream. There's actually a lot of new details that are coming out about where this might make landfall and where the greatest impacts are, which is hence why the title has breaking in it, because there's a lot of information that you need to know, and it's obviously not good news at this point that we're looking at in the latest computer model runs. But I'm going to give you a latest breakdown and everything that's going on right now, what is happening with Hurricane Ian, what level it's at, all that sort of stuff. Before we get too far into it, just a friendly reminder, hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. All right, let's get right into it. So as of right now, we have Hurricane Ian. It's a category 2 hurricane, or a category 3 hurricane with sustained winds now up to 125 miles per hour. It has strengthened a lot overnight. It is likely to become a category 4 hurricane sometime during the daytime today, whether that's at the 11 a.m. advisory or whether that's during the afternoon hours. It's likely to become a category 4 hurricane here pretty soon. And look at this hurricane right now. You can see the eye of the storm is becoming more and more defined, and it just moved over Cuba, by the way. It's just getting off Cuba now, and obviously the eye wall is still around Cuba, but the eye is now going to the ocean. So we're going to see this rapidly intensify over the next few hours, most likely becoming a category 4 hurricane within the next, I would say, 6 hours or so. Pressure is now down to 950 millibars. It is moving currently to the north at around 12 miles per hour, but it's going to continue to slow down as it moves off to the north. And a big change from overnight, it's not a huge change, but it's a small change. The track has even shifted further to the east, and the cone of uncertainty has also shifted a little bit further to the east. Now, our 11 a.m. update that comes out in about 45 minutes is going to most likely shift this cone even further off to the east. So there's going to be probably a big update coming out at 11 a.m. in terms of the cone, and I'll show you why in just a moment. There's also a tornado watch in effect for southern Florida. That would include areas, let me just go and pause it so you can get the general location real quick. But there's a tornado watch that's in effect for areas in East Naples, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Homestead, and as well as Boca Raton. That's basically about it. Nowhere else is included in that. We will probably get another tornado watch later. This one goes until 5 p.m. Eastern. So just a little update there on the tornado probabilities and whatnot for today. There is a slight risk of severe weather with the potential for a few tornadoes throughout the day today, and even potentially going to the overnight hours. But again, here's a look at the hurricane as of right now. There is again an eye now that's very well defined that is just now moving off the coast of Cuba. Again, it is forecasted to intensify here over the next little while. Closer to Florida, we are still seeing a little bit of these outer bands now moving off to the north and whatnot, so that's gonna be something to watch for. We are beginning to see some wind gust reports as well, most of them right now around 40 to 45 with some of these outer bands, so a lot of stronger storms are beginning now to move into Florida. Now let's get into the forecast and kind of what to expect over the next several days, and we have a lot of big updates, as I said before, one of them being the storm surge potential. There isn't any major changes. The only change that's notable at this point on the storm surge is now Charlotte Harbor, so basically from about Bonita Beach back through Anclote River has the potential for storm surge now up to 10 feet. This may also increase a little bit more from here, but we'll see. But as of right now, up to 10 feet of storm surge is possible there. Otherwise, up and down the west coast of Florida, you have a potential for as little as 1 foot of storm surge all the way up to as high as 10 feet, depending on where you are on this map. Again, storm surge is one of the most dangerous parts of hurricanes, so make sure, again, you're taking evacuation orders seriously, especially with the storm surge potential. On the East Coast, we still only have one area to note, and that would be from Flagler and Volusia County line back up through about Brunswick, Georgia, with the potential for 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. So another thing to keep in mind there. Otherwise, the rest of the East Coast currently does not have any storm surge forecast as of now. Rainfall has now changed from yesterday, and I did expect this. This may even increase more than what it's at right now, so keep this in mind. But one thing to note is that we currently have our pink area that is for 15 inches of rain, or even potentially a little bit more than that in isolated spots, is now ongoing for that's at least what's forecasted for areas just north and west of Tampa Bay. Now, if you're in Tampa, you could potentially see between 10 to maybe 15 inches of rain with isolated amounts higher. The red area is representing 10 inches of rain. We have a large area there from Jacksonville now back almost through Orlando. So a lot of central Florida, just north of Interstate 4 basically is where we're looking at a lot of that rainfall total being above about 10 inches of rain potentially. 6 inches of rain outside of that, that goes up through Jacksonville, goes back down through Orlando, and then lower amounts of rain are forecasted in areas in southern Florida. You can see, again, that's why there's at least why we didn't have any tropical storm watches and whatnot. Again, rainfall is not expected to be that huge in southeast Florida like Miami and West Palm Beach. More concerningly, it's more for just that rain potential, but obviously tropical storm winds are not expected still. Here is a look at the latest forecast in terms of the extreme rainfall. We now have a moderate threat of rainfall across now almost all of the peninsula of Florida. Goes back through the Big Bend, goes into southeast Georgia, and this includes literally almost everyone if you're in the peninsula of Florida. This is going to be the potential for a moderate threat of flash flooding over the next 3 days, and we are expecting some flooding to come. Here is a look now at Hurricane Ian. I already showed you on the other satellite imagery or the infrared imagery, but you can see here that obviously the eye is just coming off the coast of Cuba, and it's going to continue to move off to the north into the Gulf of Mexico. Again, it's located now in the southeast Gulf of Mexico, and again, we'll continue to move off to the north. Here's the latest National Hurricane Center track. It is still forecasted to make landfall either very late very late Wednesday or potentially early Thursday morning. So that's what's forecasted as of right now in terms of where this might make landfall. I hate to cut you guys off, but my entire shade just fell. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, hopefully that doesn't fall again. That literally just fell right on me. That was an interesting one. All right, so let's get back to the forecast. But again, it's most likely going to make landfall either very late Wednesday night, depending on how far south and east it goes, or early Thursday morning as most likely a major hurricane. That's what's forecasted as of right now, and it's more likely than not to make landfall on the west coast. I'll show you more on why here in just a moment as well. Eventually, it'll go off to the north and east from there. Does it go into the Atlantic Ocean, or does it go into Georgia? Well, let's take a look at our most recent spaghetti models runs, because this, or really it should just be called, you know, the computer models, but you can get a general idea of what we're looking at here. Is just a lot of the computer models now are showing it's most likely going to make landfall between Tampa to maybe Cape Coral. So this is a major difference from what we saw last night in last night's live stream. It is a major change. I would expect this cone to shift further east and further to the south, because at this point we are most likely going to see a landfall somewhere between Cape Coral to Tampa. That seems almost 100% likely at this point that will happen. So the cone of uncertainty still includes areas like this. I'm pretty sure it's about this or so, maybe even a little bit further west. I would expect that to really condense. We only have 1 or 2 computer models still going up to the Big Bend, but again, I've been mentioning it since literally 2 days ago. I really think the most likely scenario is that this is going to make landfall somewhere on the west coast of Florida, and it does seem more likely than not it's definitely going to happen with all these computer models now, and a lot of them being very reliable and accurate, showing it's going to make landfall somewhere between Cape Coral and as well as Tampa Bay. So it's definitely an area to watch for very closely for the landfall of this hurricane. It is forecasted again to become a Category 4 hurricane, not expected to become a Category 5. It won't get that close. It's going to get to 140 miles per hour most likely for sustained winds, maybe up to 145. But again, for it to be a Category 5 hurricane, we'd have to see winds above 155 miles per hour, which is not forecasted to occur. All right, let's go through the computer models, and this is beginning with the European model. We have a lot of updates on the computer models, including the European, which has kind of changed a little bit from last night, which is somewhat good news, but really not good news at all. Almost every computer model is showing the same thing now. Sarasota potentially for the landfall with the system going to Wednesday night, eventually going to Thursday and Friday. It stalls over central Florida, potentially bringing some extreme flooding rains to areas north of Tampa and Orlando and Daytona Beach, as well as Gainesville and up through Jacksonville. Have the potential for some flooding rains going to Thursday and Friday if it is to stall over central Florida. Also, taking a look at the GFS model, it's showing a pretty similar instance. I'm just going to refresh this. But eventually going through Wednesday, it gets close to Sarasota and Cape Coral. So again, that is probably going to make landfall sometime early Thursday, according to this computer model. But again, depending on when it makes landfall, it's not going to make a big difference at this point. Obviously, the earlier of a landfall, the less of a strong winds will occur like long term. But what we're looking at here is about Thursday into Friday. GFS model shows this completely stalls over Florida, and eventually going to Saturday, it moves off to the north. So again, all the computer models are beginning to show very similar things. This is the NAM model, and I want to mention this one because it does show again another similar path to this going through Cape Coral or Sarasota, and eventually it actually shows after this, it eventually goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. That's another scenario that we have. So if it were to go out into the Atlantic Ocean, it would most likely re-strengthen as it heads toward the Carolinas. So that's gonna be a big thing to watch out for over the next few days. Here's a look at the wind gusts on the GFS model. This is going to be something to monitor as well. We are expecting very high wind gusts along the west coast. Again, this is typically underestimated wind gusts, so we are probably talking much higher wind gusts for these areas. Cape Coral, probably at least 130 miles per hour if the eye would be that close to Cape Coral. Sarasota, well over 100 most likely as well, going to late Wednesday night and Thursday morning. Eventually it makes landfall though, and obviously wind gusts could still continue if it actually does end up stalling there in western Florida, which is the hope is that it does not stall, because obviously that would bring extreme flooding rains to areas that again really just do not need it. Here's a look at the European model. This is a bit more realistic for wind gusts. This is heading into Wednesday night. You can see wind gusts eventually get close to 105 miles per hour in Sarasota. Again, this is just a little bit underestimated. It would probably be closer to 115 to 120 at this point. Going to Thursday morning, wind gusts still stay very high at hurricane force winds, and eventually going into Thursday when it makes landfall, again, it would most likely still be bringing some high wind gusts here to the west coast, with wind gusts beginning to increase on the east coast depending on where this does track. But for the most part, anywhere on the east coast is currently forecasted to see tropical storm force winds at this given time, unless something changes and it actually goes into the Atlantic Ocean. That could change things really substantially. Here's a look at the European model in terms of what to expect in terms of rain. This is just one model, but it's been fairly consistent as well in terms of rainfall totals. Our most significant rainfall is still forecasted to be in this region here. That would basically be central and northern Florida, and as long as along the west coast, you can see the west coast with the highest amounts between 15 to 20 inches in isolated spots is definitely going to be a possibility. Tampa, 12 inches, definitely a concern there. Sarasota, 11 inches. Jacksonville, 11 inches. Daytona Beach, almost 11 inches of rain is now forecasted there, and same thing with Gainesville. So those areas are going to see the most significant rainfall. Back down in southern Florida, not nearly as much. We're talking between 2 to 4 inches for most areas, with isolated amounts a little bit higher than that. Here's a look at the latest update here from the Weather Prediction Center, which is pretty similar to the European model, showing the highest rainfall totals, though, in the Tampa Bay area, as well as through Tampa and St. Petersburg. Currently forecasted near 16 inches of rain in Tampa. Other than that, Sarasota close to 10 to 12, depending, again, on what we see and where this makes landfall specifically. Back through Daytona Beach and Orlando and Jacksonville and Gainesville, we are still talking up to a foot of rain as possible, and isolated spots could even see higher than that. So we're definitely going to be having to watch those areas very closely for significant rainfall. So that's what we're currently forecasting as of right now. But our next National Hurricane Center update comes out at 11 o'clock. That's in 30 minutes from now, and I'm expecting it to be a big cone change, and I do think that we're going to start to see this cone shift further to the east, so stay tuned. We'll be keeping you updated with the latest. It's most likely going to be a big update, so if you're just tuning in, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you've not already, and we'll keep you updated with the latest on the next National Hurricane Center update, which comes out, again, not too long from now, so a lot of stuff to get to. Alrighty, how's everybody doing, by the way? Anybody in Florida? Everybody preparing? By the way, today is really the last day to evacuate. You really shouldn't evacuate after today if you plan to evacuate. So if you have plans to evacuate, you should really just do that today. You do not want to wait last second, unless you're on the East Coast or North or something like that. But if you're on the West Coast near Tampa, Sarasota, that sort of thing, this is basically the last day that you should be evacuating, because from here on out, it's just the conditions are going to be deteriorating. So we're going to start to see a lot more rain. We're going to see a lot more wind, flooding rains, that sort of thing is going to be coming here pretty soon. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. All right, let me see if you, again, if you have any questions, by the way, feel free to pop them in the chat. Again, a lot of things are coming at 11 a.m. That's why I'm live this morning. I do think we're going to have a big cone change and a lot of major updates. One other thing I forgot to mention, by the way, we actually do have a few updates on the warnings and watches. Let me go over to that. Let's take off the infrared imagery. So a couple of updates. Cape Coral now under a hurricane warning. We have tropical storm warning still in effect from East Naples back down through the southwestern Florida region. We have tropical storm warnings in effect for areas near Spring Hill. This was originally a hurricane watch. It has now been basically upgraded now to a tropical storm warning. We still have we now officially have issued tropical storm warnings in effect from Titusville through Palm Bay and Port St. Lucie. It's just north of West Palm Beach. Now, West Palm Beach is actually included now in a tropical storm watch. There is still no watch issued for Miami or Fort Lauderdale. We also have tropical storm watches in effect from Brunswick, Georgia, back through about Daytona Beach. So that's the area that we're looking at in terms of watches and warnings. A couple of updates there. Again, a little bit of an extension to that hurricane warning that we have in effect. So Cape Coral now included in that. And also the tropical storm warning was issued here on the West Coast. And we also on the East Coast have a tropical storm warning now in effect for Palm Bay back through Port St. Lucie. So that's what we're looking at as of right now. in terms of our latest warnings and watches. And again, if you're just tuning in, this is a look at the storm right now over Cuba that's now just entering the sea. It is a nasty eye that we're looking at right now in the Gulf of Mexico. So this is obviously not good news at all, to say the least. My blinds falling was the best thing. Did you guys hear it, by the way? My blinds literally just collapsed on me. I don't know what just happened, but that's kind of funny. Hey, Deanna, how you doing? Welcome back. Hey, stay safe, Michelle. Yeah, Sarasota and those areas, it's unfortunate. Those areas are probably going to get impacted heavily. But yeah, I mean, rainfall, storm surge, flooding, and also the tornado potential does exist. We actually had a confirmed tornado this morning, I believe on the Florida Keys. But yeah, we had that this morning. Oh, actually, by the way, I forgot to mention, you can actually see this on radar. Let's go over to the radar site here. It's kind of interesting, but you can actually see the eye of the storm from the high-def radar now. If I can go ahead and pull that up. Yeah, it's pulling up now. So this is a look at it, and this is the eye of the storm. It's very well clearly depicted here on radar over near Cuba. So it's kind of impressive that you can see it from here. And also the outer bands here, the eye wall is now there, and also the inner bands. Then you got the outer bands on the outside, obviously, and then you can see some of the outer bands right now going through areas on the Keys. Again, we already had a confirmed tornado today. I'm not sure where the exact location was. We had a confirmed land spout last night on last night's live stream. We'd have a water spout that went through areas near Marathon, so that was a pretty impressive system there. But this is a look at the live radar. Again, you can clearly see the eye on radar from this distance, which is pretty impressive. And obviously a lot of rain right now going through South Florida. Let me go over to the velocities real quick, and you can see the velocities are extreme over here. Obviously, I don't know if I can get actual numbers on this. We'll go and see if I can get actual numbers by on the velocities here. Not sure if I can, though. I don't think I can. It's not letting me. Oh, there we go. So yeah, currently estimated by radar, obviously just an estimate by radar, but in these outer bands right now, 90 miles per hour is like the peak right now near Cuba. I see 82 right there. On the other side, we're seeing near 100 miles per hour. Yeah, 100 miles per hour about on the other side of the eye wall. So just near the eye of the hurricane, we're definitely seeing some very high winds. Obviously, that's just on the eye wall, but you can get and see it clearly on the radar here just north of Cuba. And again, it's now moving off the coast of Cuba. It's officially in the Gulf of Mexico now, and it's going to continue from here to move off to the northeast, and eventually probably crash into this area here from Tampa through Cape Coral. That's again what the latest models are showing, and most likely that's very accurate. The European model has been very consistent this entire time. We are more likely than not going to see a landfall from anywhere from Tampa to Tampa Bay, maybe St. Petersburg area, back through Cape Coral seems like the most likely scenario at this point. So again, 11 a.m. update today. We'll probably have a big shift to the east again. We've had shifts to the east for the last about 24 to 48 hours in terms of the track. So I would expect a big change coming up in terms of the overall track of this storm, or hurricane, I should say, as it continues to move off to the north and northeast. Again, it already is actually, it's a little bit further east than what was originally forecasted by the National Hurricane Center, which would be why we're going to be seeing that, because obviously the original track was something a bit more like this, and now the eye is a bit further to the east than that. So that's just something to obviously keep in mind, because now we're probably going to see this make landfall again, probably somewhere along the west coast there, from about Cape Coral back through Tampa is the most likely scenario at this point. And yeah, again, you can see the eye of the storm right now on radar. Eye of the hurricane just north of Cuba. And it's, again, going to probably become a Category 4 hurricane sometime today. It is a Category 3, sustained winds at 125 miles per hour right now. And by the way, I'm in Florida, so we'll see what happens. For those that have not been here yet, I'm actually in Florida. I'll be bracing the storm with y'all if you're in Florida. So, but again, if you are under any mandatory evacuation orders and whatnot, make sure you're taking those seriously, because this is a dangerous hurricane that's coming right now towards Florida. So what's Okeechobee under? I think Okeechobee is in a tropical storm warning. Let me check. I think they're in a tropical storm warning now. Almost 95% positive that they're under a tropical storm warning. Miami is not expected to get that many impacts today, by the way, or really that many impacts in general. Really, the only threat currently would be basically heavy rain, potentially some isolated flash flooding, along with the potential for, not really any storm surge, but more just heavy rainfall and maybe an isolated tornado threat. That's basically it for Southeast Florida right now. Embry-Riddle and Daytona Beach is most likely to close. Okay, thank you for the report. Hey, Grave, thank you. Appreciate it. Stay safe in Tampa. Stay safe. Dangerous over there. What has changed with Ian? Not a whole lot has changed overnight. The only thing that really changed is that the track shifted even further east. I do think with this 11 a.m. update from the National Hurricane Center that we're going to see this cone condensed really into this region here. I expect a big condensed basically region in this next outlook. That's what I expect. Obviously, you can't really predict what they're going to do, but I honestly think that the landfall of this hurricane will most likely be between Cape Coral to up to maybe Tampa. Furthest north, it would make landfall Cedar Key, but that's becoming very unlikely at this point that will happen with how it's shifted further, with how this hurricane is moving more now north and north-northeast right now. So it's more likely than not going to make landfall somewhere around Tampa or Cape Coral going into either very late tomorrow night or into Thursday morning. That's the current forecast. How accurate are the storm surge predictions? They may be a little bit underestimated. Let's go back over to the storm surge on here. They might be a little bit underestimated, but they're pretty close to what will probably happen. I mean, 5 to 10 feet, it may go a little bit higher than that. 4 to 7 feet, for example, could be another foot or two higher than that as well. Some areas may not really have as much storm surge. So right now with the forecast, in my opinion, or at least right the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, is that it'll make landfall near Tampa Bay, right? So if it made landfall right about here, storm surge would be lesser probably up here, but obviously much higher in this region from up and down the coastline here from about the Suwannee River back through about Bonita Beach. So those are the areas that we're looking at for extreme storm surge at this point, potentially higher than 10 feet as well, but that's what's forecasted as of right now. And then on the East Coast right now, it's just 2 to 4 feet. We may see that increase a little bit further south, maybe closer to Cape Canaveral, and depending on the track. Again, the computer models have ranged anywhere from going across Florida, something like that, or even just kind of staying inland. If it stays inland, we won't see a huge amount of storm surge on the East Coast. We might get a little increase, maybe up to, for example, maybe up to 5 to 6 feet, maybe 7 feet along this area near Georgia, and as well as down through the Flagler and Volusia County line. But if it were to cross across Florida like this, we could see an increase of storm surge in terms of the forecast, and we very well could see some higher storm surge there up and down the coast. I would say from about Melbourne back out to the north, kind of that region would have a better chance maybe of storm surge if it were to cross into the Atlantic Ocean. And again, if you're just tuning in, the spaghetti models, basically combining all the computer models onto one graphic here, is indicating that we're most likely going to now see a landfall between Tampa and Cape Coral. From there, the models are somewhat split. Most of them are now bringing this into the Atlantic Ocean. We still do have a cluster of them, though, that do bring it right through the center portions of Florida. Worst case scenario is if this goes right through the central portions of Florida into the Atlantic Ocean. That's worst case scenario. Really, at this point, the only scenario that is a little bit better would be if this just went through the central portions of Florida like this and went off to the north, because otherwise, if it goes into the Atlantic Ocean, it'll have time to re-strengthen, and it would actually have about 24 hours or so to re-strengthen there over basically areas just east of Florida and into the Carolinas. So that's the most dangerous situation at this point in terms of this hurricane, and that's something that we just, again, do not want or need for this to do. And we're really hoping, again, it would go further north because there's a lot more wind shear up here in the northern Gulf of Mexico, but unfortunately, the track has been shifting further and further east over the last 24 to 48 hours, and it's seemingly more likely that we're going to see a landfall somewhere there on the west coast of Florida between Tampa or Cape Coral. So that's really the forecast as of right now in terms of its landfall. Obviously, things could change, but that seems like the most likely scenario as of right now. Yes, Connie, he did, yes. I will be evacuating, guys. I have a plan in place. I'm good. I have not evacuated yet, but I am planning on doing so today probably. So, yeah. As long as things go as they are currently forecasted, I am planning to evacuate later today. So I will not have a live... I don't know when my live stream will be tonight. I'll have a live stream at some point, but I'm not sure when. It just depends on when I'm, ready to be able to go live. And again, if you're just tuning in, again, we're going to have our next hurricane update. The National Hurricane Center has another advisory update in 20 minutes. You're not going to want to miss it. There could be some big changes coming to the forecast and cone of uncertainty at the 11 a.m. update. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated with the latest. Other than that, again, we have a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of flooding, rains, storm surge. If you've already missed that sort of information, again, highest storm surge is now forecasted between Tampa to Cape Coral. Basically from Charlotte Harbor back through Tampa Bay is where we're going to probably see the largest storm surge out of this hurricane. Also, there's a tornado watch for southern Florida that goes from Naples into Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all included again in a tornado watch up until 5 p.m. today. So that's going to be going on for the next 7 hours or so. Thanks, Connie. I appreciate it. I know we have some severe weather right now. The outer bands are not overly organized over here. We have a couple of outer bands, but they're closer to like the Key West region. So that would be why we don't have any tornado warnings or anything like that. We had a few, we did have a confirmed tornado overnight. I'm not sure what time it happened at, but we did have a confirmed tornado, or at least a water spout of some sort here along the Keys, I'm pretty sure, overnight. So we had one last night too. We had a water spout last night. Did I hear Evan's birthday was yesterday? I had no clue. I don't think he told me. Yeah, some of the tips, by the way, if you're in Florida, just a few reminders. Make sure you have food and water ready. Again, these are things that you should have already done at this point, but if you have not already, it's really today's the last day that you should be doing that. Make sure you have food, plenty of water. You know, that can be week supply, basically. Make sure you have food, basically like medicine and stuff like that ready. Make sure that stuff is all kind of prepared and whatnot. Even have cash money too. If you know, cash is definitely useful if you do run out of power and whatnot. Have, you know, your phones, old phones, you know, video cameras, anything that can provide light, including flashlights. Make sure those are all prepped and ready to go as well in case there are power outages, because it's more likely than not we're going to see pretty substantial power outages along the west coast of Florida heading into the next several days, and that could be out for a week or two. You never know with these sort of hurricanes. So yeah, definitely make sure that you are prepared for this. As we get closer to making landfall, we're going to see a lot more power outages from where that came from. So what's at least expected as of right now. Thank you, DK, for the $50 super chat. I really do appreciate that, DK. Thank you very much. That's very generous of you. Again, make sure you get some claps in the chat for DK. Very generous donation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, Katie, how you doing? Welcome back. Been raining on the Treasure Coast. Isn't the Treasure Coast like Palm Bay out there in Miami? I can't remember where Treasure Coast is. They have a lot of treasure. Is that why they called it the Treasure Coast? little history class. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, this is the look at the eye of the storm, by the way. This is, again, the eye of the hurricane. I keep saying storm. Eye of the hurricane, though, again, it's strengthening. We are probably going to see this at a Category 4 level here within the next 3 to 4 hours. If not, it might already be that. But, yeah, we have a pretty decent eye right now that has just crossed over Cuba. It just got off land and is now heading into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's officially in the Gulf of Mexico now. So, yeah, we definitely, again, have a very clear depicted eye on the infrared imagery. I can also go ahead and show you the satellite imagery. We actually have access to that this morning. This is a look at the satellite imagery. And I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. I can't get the full loop on here, but this is a look at it recently and kind of taking a little bit more as a zoom at it. There's your eye right there. You can kind of see a little bit right there through it, but other than that, that's where your eye is. Again, that's just north of Tampa, but this is a little simulation through it over the last 2 to 3 hours as we've had it. And again, you can kind of see the outer band starting to reach areas up there in the Keys and whatnot into Florida. Now, a lot of storms blowing up this morning. Obviously, that is dangerous right now, what we're seeing out there, but it's a little bit better of a look at it. That was the satellite imagery. Now we're on the infrared. The infrared imagery has it much more defined now, north of the Cuba region now. So it's now in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. From here, it's most likely going to become a Category 4 hurricane sometime today, whether that's now or really within the next 15 minutes or whether that's a little bit later today. It's to be determined, but it most likely will become a Cat 4 hurricane as it moves off to the north-northeast, and eventually it'll make landfall somewhere between Cape Coral and Tampa, most likely, going into late Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That's currently the expected time frame. Most likely as a strong Category 2 hurricane or a Category 3 hurricane. More likely than not, if it makes landfall this far to the south, it's going to be a Category 3 hurricane upon landfall. So that's kind of one of the negatives that we're going to probably see out of this. If it were to make landfall this far south, which is seemingly more likely. So again, National Hurricane Center update comes out in 15 minutes. I'm expecting it to be a very big update. So if you're just tuning in, make sure to stay tuned. It's going to be a big update. Cone of uncertainty likely to shift further to the east. So there'll be a big update coming up. Let me go back over to here and let's do this. Here's a little track of it as well. Again, tornado watch in effect for southern Florida includes Miami, as well as areas just south of Cape Coral. So Naples is included, Fort Lauderdale. Several areas are currently included in a tornado watch this morning. That goes until 5 p.m., by the way, this afternoon. We'll probably get another one later today as well. Do you think it'll turn more east? I do expect this cone of uncertainty to shift further to the east in the next update. But again, I'm not the National Hurricane Center. I cannot confirm that. but I do think it probably will shift further to the east. Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. And again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, make sure to hit the like button down below. It helps out the page a lot, gets us out to more people. Make sure to subscribe. Again, we're going to be covering the tropics a lot this week. We've already done 3 live streams on it, and we plan to do more. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. We do have a new wind report. I just want to get to that real quick. We have a new wind report on the Keys. Pretty sure it's just a wind gust. And on from the tropical outer bands, basically, I think it's from the storms. From one of the outer bands of Hurricane Ian, a 48-mile-per-hour wind gust was reported over near Boca Chica. So that was just west of Marathon. So we're beginning to see tropical storm force winds now on the Florida Keys. And that will probably continue again over the next 24 to maybe even 48 hours on the Florida Keys. So I called it. I know. I'm pretty good with forecasting stuff like this, but I've been saying it for the last 48 hours. It's most likely going to make landfall between Cedar Key. It's a Cape Coral. Again, we're not there yet, so I technically didn't call it, quote unquote, but it's more likely than not going to be somewhere in that region. Now it's seemingly more likely than not going to happen between Tampa Bay to Cape Coral. So more likely it's going to make landfall somewhere there along the West Coast. What time is it supposed to hit Tampa? Tampa could potentially see hurricane force winds as early as the next really 24 hours. But more likely than not, you're going to probably start to see those effects probably tomorrow at some point, sometime in the morning or early afternoon. But when it makes landfall is expected to be either late Wednesday night or Thursday morning. So Thursday morning more likely than not, but if it goes a bit further south, we could have it make landfall late Wednesday night. So it's one of the two right now. It's currently a Category 3 hurricane, sustained winds near 130 miles per hour. I believe it's officially 125 by the National Hurricane Center, but it's pretty close to 130. And pressure is right now down to 950 millibars. So it is definitely an intensifying hurricane, and it's going to most likely intensify to a Category 4 within the next few hours. Will this be a threat to the Northeast later on? It's hard to tell long term, but there's definitely a possibility that we do see this impact the Northeast or really along the East Coast long term. That's most likely going to make some impacts. What the impacts are, it's still to be determined. So, thank you, Periscope. Appreciate it. Thanks, Prepper. I appreciate it. Many cruise lines are shifting directions. That is typically a given with hurricanes, especially like this one. Yeah, it's pretty typical. Which is obviously good. You don't want a cruise ship driving right into a hurricane. I don't think anybody wants that. Especially if you're on a vacation, you do not want those alcoholic beverages spilling everywhere. Your boat like going over these massive waves. That's just not a good thing to see. But yeah, I'm pretty sure any cruise ships will be obviously avoiding this hurricane with all costs in mind and whatnot, because you don't want to drive into a hurricane. I'm pretty sure almost every cruise ship does that. There's been an occasional cruise ship that actually ends up kind of getting close to it, which, there's a lot of high waves and whatnot typically with that sort of thing, so. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the cruise ships are actually doing, because I don't know how they would reroute. I mean, if you're talking about, like, Miami, the only area I can imagine you going is maybe over to the Bahamas, and Cape Canaveral as well. Probably going towards, like, the Bahamas or something like that. If there were to be any cruise ships. Out of Tampa, if there's any cruise ships out of Tampa, I don't know where you're going. I don't know if you're going to go like way around or something like that to like the Yucatan. I don't know if there's, islands or something like that over there, but I have no clue. I don't know. In case you wanted sandbags, the line is over a mile long in Sarasota County. Well, thank you for the report, Jeff. So apparently if you want sandbags in Sarasota County, it's going to be a while to get any. Dennis, I would probably go ahead and say it's about a 20 to maybe probably about a 30% chance. It depends on its track. Kissimmee, though, could potentially see some tropical or hurricane force winds. I mean, again, if it takes a track across Florida like that, which a lot of computer models are now indicating, it very well could potentially bring that sort of impact there to Interstate 4, and that would include areas like Kissimmee as well. Other than that, if it goes a bit further north like this, you're probably going to at least have some strong tropical storm force winds. What I'm thinking as of right now. Carolinas, I cannot forecast that long term. There's two scenarios. Either one, it goes out into sea. So let me go back over to here and show you. So this is these are basically the couple of scenarios that we have. One scenario is that we have there's multiple, but these are like the two at least most known that are probably going to be, you know, one of these two is most likely going to happen more than not. But one scenario is that it crosses across Florida and then goes into the Atlantic Ocean and turns back out to the north towards the Carolinas. That's worst case scenario. If this were to happen, we could be talking about a re-strengthening to a Category 1 hurricane potentially and make landfall there in the Carolinas, maybe even a little bit stronger than that. But that's what's forecasted with one scenario. Our second scenario is it makes landfall somewhere again from Tampa to Cape Coral. That seems pretty likely at this point, and then it turns through inland and goes off to the north. In this scenario, it's not going to bring as much of a wind threat. Storm surge may be possible across the coast. We may also see a little bit of, you know, tropical storm force winds and whatnot. Tornado potential at this point would potentially be existent along areas in the east. So that'd be from basically central and eastern South Carolina and central and eastern North Carolina may have a tornado potential going into that long term. Depending on where it tracks, though, is really the big question at this point. We're looking at as of right now. Yeah, good point, Virginia. Yeah, that's a good point. Could it get stronger? It's going to probably become a Category 4 in probably the next, I'd say, 3 to 4 hours. If not, it might already be one. I mean, look at the eye. This is impressive. This is a look at the eye of the storm. It is very defined right now. It's very impressive. And again, it just moved over Cuba, so that's what we're looking at here. This eye is very defined, though. I've kind of said it a few times. It is really intensified over the last 48 hours. This is classified as rapid intensification to a hurricane, or even a tropical storm into a hurricane. This is just paused here, and that is a very... Let me go and actually get the diameters on this. Yeah, this isn't the official eye. This is infrared imagery, so it's a little bit different, but it's about 24 miles wide. Now, if you go over to the actual satellite imagery, which is a little bit different, this is a look at it. It's harder to see through. I mean, this is a look at the satellite imagery. So there are some clouds there, but definitely obviously strengthening right now as it moves off to the north. It's the infrared, though. Do you think Tampa will break record on flooding? It's possible. Again, long term, it's kind of hard to predict that. The computer models are currently indicating that we'd probably see upwards of potentially 12 to 16, maybe 20 inches of rain in the Tampa region. Other areas, let me go back over to the other graphics here. This is a look at the rainfall totals that are currently being estimated by the European model, for example. It shows the potential for a foot, maybe even up to 2 feet along the west coast here of Florida, so near Tampa, St. Petersburg, back up even maybe through Cedar Key, we could see up to a foot of rain. Otherwise, a lot of rain. Again, it's expected in central Florida. It seems like the most hit areas will be around Interstate 4 and off to the north. At this given time, at least, that's what's forecasted. The Weather Prediction Center currently is forecasting upwards of maybe 16 inches of rain near Tampa. Sarasota is currently forecasted to get near 11 inches. But again, the range is a bit more different. We're talking a bigger range, so 15 to 20 inches is really what's being at least forecasted for Tampa. Sarasota is probably be somewhere between 10 to 15. That's kind of like the range that we have as of right now. Daytona Beach could get up to a foot of rain. Jacksonville, almost 11 to 12 inches of rain. So that's what we're looking at least as of right now in terms of the extreme rainfall out of the system. Let me see if we have any other. We do have a couple of other computer models that I can show. We'll go to the GFS model real quick. I'm not sure what they were estimating for rainfall, and they were estimating an extreme amount, but that's also because it was showing it would stall for like days on end. So I don't think this is going to happen. 53 inches. That's obviously that's like beyond Hurricane Harvey level. So let's see if we have another model. Let's go to the NAM model. I'll take a look at this one real quick. Again, these are computer models. It's not official forecast by any means. NAM model is also showing a scenario where it'd be slow across Florida. This is also not, I wouldn't say realistic, but it is possible. But I'm still thinking the WPC outlook is probably more accurate right now. It's more up to date. I do think that the range across central Florida will probably be between 10 to 15 inches in this region. It might get a few isolated amounts higher than that, but we're not going to be looking at most likely widespread amounts between 20 to 30 inches, like that sort of thing. But we could see isolated amounts 20 inches and greater. It's definitely not out of the question, but that's just a few of the computer models at this point. I do not, Thomas. No, I do not recall what Charlie's strength was. Can't talk. By the way, next, again, you want to make sure you stay tuned. In 5 minutes, we have the next National Hurricane Center update. We'll have an update on the cone, the track, intensity. We're going to stay on this screen for the next few minutes as we have that next update coming out, again, in only a few minutes. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll have a big update coming out, again, from the National Hurricane Center here in a few minutes. So make sure you stay tuned. Again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, reminder to hit the subscribe button down below. We're going to keep you updated throughout this hurricane as it approaches Florida. We're doing a lot of live streams this week. And we'll have to wait and see what this update is, but it's probably going to be a big update. So, big National Hurricane Center updates most likely coming up in the next few minutes. And also, if you're a regular viewer and you've been here for a while, this is actually my early stream on record. So. No, I know Charlie was a Category 4 hurricane, but I don't know what the actual, like, what it was inland. Like, because somebody was asking in chat what Charlie's strength was like to certain counties, which I don't actually recall that. I mean, that's kind of before my time anyways of tracking hurricanes. It was a Category 4 hurricane. The only difference is this hurricane is probably gonna be a smidge less in terms of winds. And it's also the potential for it to take a similar track to Charlie is definitely possible. So that's kind of the concern as of right now. It very well could take a very similar track to what Charlie did. Tallahassee is currently expected to receive somewhere between, I think, 2 to 4 inches, maybe isolated amounts higher. Let me double check, though, for you. I'm pretty sure it's going to be in that range, though. The QPC, the Weather Prediction Center, basically, it's saying 2 to 4 inches. You could see a little bit less than that, though. I mean, they typically have a broader spectrum of forecasting it, so you're currently forecasted to get between 2 to 4 inches of rain. I did not, KD, but I do plan on getting gas today. Yeah, I have not gotten gas yet. And yeah, that's one of those things I should have gotten gas before, but I just haven't had time. I've been doing a lot of live streaming and stuff. But yeah, my gas tank is pretty much empty right now, so I'm trying to save money, and that ended up kind of kicking me in the butt with this hurricane. Yeah, because I am going to be evacuating, it looks like, today. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be evacuating here pretty soon. After this live stream's over, most likely, I have a class, and then I'm probably evacuating. So that's the plan as of right now. Because I'm in Florida, for those that are wondering. So I am going to be going, basically evacuating. All right, let's see if they have an update yet. All right, no new update yet. Again, it comes out at 11 a.m. We're about 4 minutes from that. National Hurricane Center has their latest outlook coming out in a few minutes. Again, stay tuned. Big update probably coming from the National Hurricane Center. Yes, Carter, I am. Chase it? I've been thinking about doing a little chase. I'm not probably before the hurricane. I might do a chase after the hurricane, kind of get some, like, you know, maybe do some, like, storm damage photos and stuff like that. I might do that after the hurricane, but we'll see. I might do a little live stream for that. Empty tank, it might help my car float better. Yeah, right. Kind of hope that we don't. I'm hoping that I don't have an issue getting gas, because it's literally, I only have like 20 miles at the most right now on it. It's not much, so I am hoping that I can get gas, but we'll see what happens. My hope is I have no issues getting gas. Gas stations have long lines in Tampa. I don't think I'll have as much of an issue, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't been out there yet, so I have no clue. Get prepared. I know I need to get. I was prepared for everything besides gas at this point. So if gas ends up costing me, you know, that's just unfortunate. Because honestly, I'm prepared in every way other than having a full gas tank. So I purposely didn't, because I didn't think that this hurricane would actually go this far east initially. Like before, you know, I haven't driven my car like a few days now, so I didn't originally think that this was going to go this direction into Florida. So that's kind of like the one thing behind it. But yeah, that's the reason more than not why. I mean, the other reason would be just because I was trying to save money as well. So I thought gas prices would go down a bit more. It's the new direction putting Miami in Ian's path. Ian will not impact Miami that significantly. You may get, again, tornado threat is possible. Other than that, though, I mean, storm surge will probably remain very minor, if not probably none across areas near Miami. And then you're not even under a tropical storm watch. You actually have no watch for the Miami area. So as of now, regardless of its track, it's probably not going to impact Miami that significantly, other than rain and a low-end tornado potential. Hey, Julie, how you doing? Welcome back. I know it's morning. This is my first, I'm pretty sure this is my first ever morning stream. I've never gone early this live, so it's a record, to say the least. They have not yet issued this advisory, by the way. All right, no, they have. Okay, so all right, we have new watches and warnings. Okay, so we have a huge update coming, by the way. This is gonna be a very massive update, so you're gonna want to stay tuned. Again, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you've not already. This is a big update. So the latest on Ian. Powerful Hurricane Ian emerges into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. That's given at this point on the infrared imagery. New watches and warnings have been issued for Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. So there's now new watches and warnings issued. What those are, I am not sure yet. We're going to find that out here in a few minutes once I actually get the full update here. But that's what we've just heard, that there's new watches and warnings in effect for areas in Georgia and as well as in Florida. So we have new watches and warnings. A lot of stuff's going to come out of this, so make sure you stay tuned. But we're getting our latest update right now. So that's going to be coming out here in just a moment. We'll get more specific details for you as they come. I'm not sure if it's a Category 4 hurricane yet. It might be just a strong Category 3, but we'll have that information here in just a second. This is probably a pretty big update, though, I would assume. The cone is most likely going to shift as well, so. Thanks, Scant. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been, I know, it's crazy. Yes, there is a tornado watch ongoing in southern Florida, so that is ongoing as well. We have a tornado potential, storm surge, flooding, wind. There's everything basically going into this this hurricane. Latest update actually shows it has weakened, surprisingly. So currently, Ian is now down to 115 mile per hour sustained winds, and that is probably because it went over land. It's probably going to re-strengthen, though, in the next 6 to 10 hours or so. The eye is obviously very well defined, by the way. You can see it here on the map here. It's definitely very well defined. Latest track is now further south. We are now likely going to see, now it's at least the National Hurricane Center has shifted its track down here further south. It is now forecasted to make landfall even further south than Tampa, closer to Sarasota and Port Charlotte. So we're seeing this now going further to the south. Now, the cone of uncertainty is not yet updated. It will update in a few minutes. It is now going more north-northeast, though, as of now. Again, current pressure has actually gone up a little bit as well. Again, it was interacting with land a little bit. Pressure is now at 963 millibars. 115 mile per hour winds is currently what we have as of right now for wind speeds at the center of this. It is currently moving north now. It's no longer moving any direction west. It is moving north at 10 miles per hour. And again, it's slowing down a little bit. So those are our latest updates. It has weakened a smidge. And obviously, the cone of uncertainty is very likely to shift east here in just a second. We'll have that information in a moment once it comes out. But we are likely going to see a big cone shift to the east in this next update. We also have watches and warnings that have been issued. I'm waiting for updates on that as well. We should have that update here in a second. There are new watches and warnings for Florida and Georgia. So that will be coming out here in a moment. Again, the latest on the intensity track is now shifted further to the east. It is forecasted to make landfall in Florida as a major hurricane. Ian is still a Category 3 hurricane, sustained winds at 115 miles per hour. It is likely to become a Category 4 hurricane, though, as early as today. It may become a hurricane, or potentially a Category 4 hurricane, though, just west here of the Florida Keys. That's what's forecasted as of right now. It is now forecasted to make landfall as a Category 3 hurricane with sustained winds near 125 miles per hour. That is a big increase from before, by the way, in terms of a landfall. So if it makes landfall further south, this could make landfall as either a Category 3 or even a category 4 hurricane. That's actually not out of the question at this point. Wind gusts are currently forecasted to be now near 155 miles per hour. Right along here the west coast near Cape Coral and just south of Tampa. That's our latest update on the intensity. We are still waiting an update on the cone of uncertainty, which should be coming out here in just a moment. So stay tuned for that. And the cone of uncertainty has shifted. It has not shifted on my map, but it has shifted officially. There's a lot of updates here. We're going to get to the warnings first. There's now officially... let me go and turn off the infrared imagery. So we have a lot of updates here. Let's go and pause this as well. All right, so a lot of updates on watches and warnings, and I'll get to the cone of uncertainty here in just a second, which is a pretty big shift. One thing to note first, it's likely to make landfall Wednesday night now. Currently, this is at 8 p.m. Wednesday night, so if it were to make landfall this far south, Ian is likely to make landfall tomorrow night near Sarasota. That's what's being forecasted as of right now. Along with that, we now officially have tropical storm warnings in effect up and down the east coast of Florida. That goes from approximately West Palm Beach or so back up through about Brunswick, Georgia. We now have tropical storm watches in effect from about Brunswick back up through South Carolina. That actually goes further north. It goes near Charleston, I think, in that sort of area. We now officially have tropical storm watches in effect for Miami. So if you're in Miami, this is now officially a tropical storm watch there. Hurricane warning, I don't think has shifted any further south. I think it's the same as before. So that's the big updates. The cone of uncertainty has changed. Let me go ahead and show you guys that on the other end here. This is a look at the cone of uncertainty on the latest update. The big changes with this, again, it's a pretty big change at this point. It's pretty substantial. It has shifted further to the east. It no longer includes most of the Big Bend area. It's seemingly more likely than not they're going to make landfall somewhere in that red shaded region there near Tampa, along with Cape Coral. That's the area that I've been saying for the last 48 hours has the best potential of this making landfall. Cone of uncertainty has shifted further to the east, and it actually has shifted further to the east as well here in the Atlantic Ocean. So again, big update there. Here's a look at the watches and warnings if you're kind of confused on pinpoint of location. They have not updated yet on my software, but from about Charleston back through Brunswick, there's now officially a tropical storm watch in effect for those areas. From Brunswick back through about West Palm Beach, it's official that there's a tropical storm warning in effect. That means tropical storm conditions are likely within the next 36 hours in those areas. Tropical storm watch has officially been issued for Miami. That's an area that has not had a watch at this point. And other than that, no new updates here along the West Coast in terms of watches and warnings. Those are all still the same. At least I'm pretty sure they are. Again, now it's forecast to make landfall though tomorrow night as a major hurricane. So again, a big update there on the entire system here that is moving off to the north and as well as going to be moving off to the northeast. Cone of uncertainty has not shifted on my end, but we'll have that update probably in a few minutes. So keep you updated with that. But yeah, big changes here on the track and whatnot. And again, if you're just tuning in, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're gonna have live coverage throughout this week. We're gonna be live here for the next probably at least hour or so, kind of giving you an idea of what's gonna happen. Cone of uncertainty has shifted now, so this is a look at it. It's now officially showing on my end. Let me go ahead and take this off. So you can clearly see it has shifted further east. Previously, I'm pretty sure it was a bit more like this. There's a pretty big difference here that we're looking at now in the short term. The cone of uncertainty has shifted further east, so the potential area of where this will make landfall, I'm still saying the highest probability is from Cape Coral through Tampa. This is the most likely scenario is where a landfall is. There's still a very low chance that it goes a bit further north in between, let's just say, Newport Richey through approximately Highway 19 back up here near Horseshoe Beach, for example. That's a very low chance, but it seems very unlikely it'll make landfall that far to the north. It's more likely than not going to make landfall between Tampa and Cape Coral. So that's what's being forecasted as of right now in terms of the landfall. New update to the cone of uncertainty. It has shifted slightly further south as well. It actually has a cone of uncertainty as far south now as Cape Coral, almost down to Port St. Lucie here near Interstate 95. Near Vero Beach, for example. Actually, Vero Beach is a vacationing spot. So the cone of uncertainty is actually shifted a little bit further south, along with it shifting further to the east. So those are huge updates here with at least the 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Again, big update here overall for those, again, here in Florida. We are seeing a big shift to the east, and it's most likely going to continue here as we go throughout the day today. I would expect at 5 p.m. this advisory, we'll probably see another shift to the east. Computer models, as I said before, they're all pretty much putting it in line here along the west coast from about Cape Coral back through Tampa. There's only a couple that bring it up to the north, but I don't expect that to happen at this point. It seems more likely than not this is going to turn into the west coast of Florida, as most likely making landfall as a Category 3 hurricane. Further south it makes landfall, it may even be a Category 4 hurricane, but as of right now, that's what's being forecasted in terms of its intensity. the track and everything that, again, you need to know at this point in terms of those forecasts. I think we have an update on storm surge as well. Let me get to the forecast there. We have a few other forecast graphics to show you. Let me get over to those, and we'll take a look and see what those updates are. Storm surge forecast has indeed been updated. We have a huge update on storm surge, by the way. And I'm actually still on the wrong screen. I apologize. But let's go back over to this graphic. And this is a look at the storm surge, which is a big update here. We are now up to 12 feet of storm surge for those from near Tampa Bay back through Charlotte Harbor. That is now forecasted to be between 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. This has also shifted further to the south. From about Anclote River through middle of Longboat Key, it's forecasted to now be 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. So the Tampa Bay area is now forecasted to be a smidge lower than before. Regardless, you should still be taking those evacuation orders seriously in those areas. Bonita Beach through about the Chocoloski area. I'm not saying the name right, but that's going to be 5 to 8 feet of storm surge as well. 4 to 6 feet of storm surge now is forecasted from that area through East Cape Sable. So that's an upgrade from what we had before as well. Key West is up to 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. Anclote River through about the Asila River is now through 2 to 4 feet of storm surge as well. Indian Pass is still around 1 to 3 feet of storm surge up that direction. On the East Coast, we now have an update from the Patrick Air Force Base through about the Flagler and Volusia County line, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge as possible. For about the Marineland to the mouth of the St. Mary's River is now forecasted to be 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. 4 to 6 feet of storm surge is going to be possible back up from the southeastern portions of Georgia. From Brunswick back through the Savannah River, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge is going to be possible. And South Santee River is going to be from 2 to 4 feet of storm surge up that direction. So a big update here on the storm surge that's forecasted now across really all of Florida as well as Georgia. So again, another big update there. Let me see if there's any other updates that we need to note here, but that's, again, a very big update for storm surge. Again, cone of uncertainty has shifted further east. Let me see if we have any flooding updates or anything like that. No flooding update, no flooding, at least rainfall total updates it looks like right now. Let's see if we have anything else to note here. Yeah, we do have slight risks for severe weather across Florida for the potential for a few tornadoes over the next few days. That's basically a given at this point. Let me see if the watches and warnings update. They have not updated on my end, but this is again a look at the new cone of uncertainty. Again, it's now forecasted to make landfall as most likely a Category 3 hurricane somewhere just south of Tampa, in between Cape Coral and Tampa. That's the current forecast now with this hurricane. So that's the update at this point in terms of the cone of uncertainty and everything. Then the 5 p.m. update, I do expect the cone of uncertainty to shift further to the east and condense more, probably including more likely than not this area here is probably where it's going to make landfall. So I would expect this to continue to move further down to the south and east. Again, that's what's being indicated by all the computer models at this point, other than a couple of outliers. So we're probably, at least at this point, going to see a landfall here along the west coast. And here's again a look right now at Hurricane Ian as it continues to track out to the north. Again, it's currently a Category 3 hurricane with sustained winds at 115 miles per hour. So again, a huge update here, as I said before. Again, if you're just tuning in, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. It's free to do, and again, we'll keep you updated with the latest tropical information. We're only 6 subscribers from 19,750, so make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And again, big update today. Big update here on the advisory. And now this is for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know any specific questions. Again, we have a big update, though, obviously, for those that are along the west coast. It's seemingly more likely than not going to make landfall along the west coast of Florida. So big updates there, though. And yeah, searching outdoors, that's totally right. Yeah, a lot of these numbers keep changing, and that's obviously going to happen as we get closer, as we get a more refined forecast. Things will change. At this point, though, from here on out, things are going to be more minorly changed than having any major changes. At this point, we're going to have a lot of minor changes to the forecast, if any. So, you know, for example, in Cape Coral right now, I think the storm surge forecast over that direction is currently 8 to 12 feet. From here, it's not going to change a whole lot. If it goes further north, it might change a little bit, but at this point, that's pretty close to what we'll probably see in that area. So let me take a look if we have any update on the rainfall totals. I don't think we do. Or the estimated rainfall totals, though. Let's see. Yeah, no new update on the rainfall totals map. This is a look at it, though, if you're curious. Let me go and put up the other screen here. So yeah, this is a look at the rainfall totals that are currently being estimated or at least forecasted by the Weather Prediction Center. It's currently forecasted to probably be somewhere between a foot to even up to maybe even closer to 2 feet on the west coast there. And then obviously through central Florida from along Interstate 4 back off to the north, currently forecasted to be somewhere above 10 inches of rain, if not even a little bit more. Southern Florida, not nearly as much. If you're along the east coast, you might see up to 5 to 6 inches. But other than that, Southern Florida, not nearly as much rain expected down that direction. West Palm Beach will not see that many impacts. The only impacts currently forecasted is the rainfall potential and also maybe some tropical storm force winds, but those threats are currently still pretty low right now. Liam, that's the Weather Prediction Center's QPF outlook for the next, I think, 5 days. Yeah, storm surge is one of the more dangerous things with hurricanes, and it's one of those things that a lot of people kind of rule out, so... Hopefully, we have, obviously, for those that are currently in evacuation orders and whatnot, make sure that you are taking those evacuation orders seriously. This is definitely going to be a dangerous hurricane. Give me 1 second. My feet were getting cold, so I need to get socks. All right. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I'll try to get to some of them. Orlando, the main potential right now for Orlando is the potential for tropical storm force winds and the potential for extreme rainfall. Again, flooding being a concern. Yeah, that was another pretty big update. Again, the cone is probably going to continue to shift further to the east here over the next few days, especially for those along the west coast and whatnot. Over the next 24 hours, I should say. It's probably going to continue to condense there across Tampa and Cape Coral. Again, that's my area that I think it will make landfall in, which is really horrible news at this point, but that's pretty much the more likely scenario of where this will make landfall. And it'll probably be somewhere between those areas. So that's what's being forecasted as of right now. The cone has shifted pretty substantially, by the way, to the east. Just for reference, it actually has shifted further south and east substantially. It was originally a little bit further to the west, but it has definitely shifted pretty far to the east and the south. The cone here might not show that, that big change, but it's a good 50 miles at least. Yeah, I'll try to go and measure it here real quick. Yeah, it was about 70 miles was the difference here. At least. So it was a pretty big change there on the cone of uncertainty. And it also shifted further to the south. The eye could technically go as far south now as Cape Coral and even just north of Port St. Lucie there between Palm Bay and Port St. Lucie along that Interstate 95 stretch. Oh, that's definitely something to kind of keep in mind. And actually, the eye could technically go that far south. But I do think more likely than not, landfall is most likely going to happen somewhere in this region here. From there, it's either going to go probably a bit further off to the north and stay inland, or it's going to go back into the Atlantic Ocean. One of those two scenarios is more likely than not going to occur. So, we're looking at it as of right now. I know, Melanie, I know. Socks are one of those weird things. For whatever reason, they make your body just feel really cold. Are tornadoes just about certain with all hurricanes? Typically the setup is that we do have like a lot of hurricanes, or excuse me, a lot of potentially tornadoes. Sorry, I'm trying to read somebody's message, but tornadoes are typical with a lot of hurricanes. I mean, it's pretty typical with how the setup is. A lot of the low-level jet, shear, all that sort of stuff comes into play. So, yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to get somebody's message. 1 second. Yeah, Facebook message. Yeah, there's a lot of ingredients. That's all I gotta say. With hurricanes, it's pretty typical to see tornadoes and whatnot. Obviously, to the widespreadness of them, they can be, potential. There can be sometimes even outbreaks with hurricanes, but it's typically more likely than not just like a few. All right, I'm back to chat. Sorry, I had to get back to a message there. Liam, you just gotta go to the WPC website. It's called Weather Prediction Center. They have all those graphics on there. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Yeah, it's most likely, again, going to make landfall there between Tampa and Cape Coral. And I've been saying that for the last few days here, but more likely than not, we're going to see a landfall somewhere between there. It's kind of interesting to see how this unfolds, though. We actually have some data research going into this in terms of, like basically the long-term stuff of this. So one of the things that we're kind of watching here is where it makes landfall, like the long-term, like a few days ago, what were all the computer models showing, and kind of matching that up and seeing which computer model is actually the most accurate with this system long-term. And, consistency is a big thing with computer models and stuff. And I've mentioned that before with the European model, because the European computer model has been very consistent with its overall track and intensity as well. So the European model for almost this entire time has been showing a pretty similar track, either going off to the north here, just off the coast of Tampa, or even going into, recently more than not, it's been actually showing it's going to go into Florida now. So consistency is a big thing with computer models, and it's obviously been pretty much known at this point that we've seen a lot of consistency with computer models in terms of this storm or this hurricane with at least the European models so far. So big update there. Winds up to 125 miles per hour are currently forecasted at landfall, wherever it makes landfall between Cape Coral and Tampa. That's what's being forecasted as of right now. Otherwise, wind gusts could get as high as 150 to 155. So we're going to be talking about huge wind gusts here on the west coast here of Florida. Cape Coral, Jason, if you're in Cape Coral, storm surge could go up to 12 feet. That's the latest forecast. I'll go and pull it up. This is the latest forecast on storm surge. That's not storm surge. Let me go over to the storm surge forecast, which is here. Let's look at the storm surge forecast. So as of right now, from about the Charlotte Harbor area, so Bonita Beach back through about Tampa Bay. Oh, actually, no, this is not updated. Sorry. This is the updated one. So about Bonita Beach through the middle of Longboat Key is currently forecasted to go up to 12 feet of storm surge. That's the latest update there. And then obviously along the East Coast here, this is all new. So if you're in South Carolina and through Georgia and even into the East Coast of Florida, there's a lot of updates there, obviously. You can kind of read through these areas. If you're in that area, obviously storm surge is expected. For a lot of those areas, highest storm surge is currently being forecasted near the mouth of the St. Mary's River, back through about Savannah River. So that area in Georgia, definitely going to see potentially some pretty significant storm surge as well. Most substantial and most life-threatening storm surge, though, will be from about Anclote River back through about East Cape Sable or so. So Swanee River even, you could probably say from about Swanee River back through East Cape Sable. So almost the entire west coast of Florida has potential for some life-threatening storm surge. Liam, I'll be live up until, my plan currently is up till probably another 20 to 25 minutes. I do have a class, and then after that, we'll see. Yeah, my plan currently is that this live stream will be at least another 20 to 25 minutes. And then from there, I will probably do another live stream tonight. At some point. I don't know when, though. That's a storm surge map. Thank you, by the way, for everybody subscribing. I appreciate it. Again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, friendly reminder, hit the subscribe button down below. We are, again, closing in on 20,000 subscribers. So if you have not already, hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Let me go back over to this. Let's make sure we're on the right screen here. So look at, again, Hurricane Ian as of right now. Happy birthday, Shannon. Happy birthday. I have a family just outside of Tampa. Yeah, it's going to get bad. I mean, Tampa right now is not seeing a whole lot yet. Outer bands really haven't reached Tampa yet. They're beginning to get pretty close, though. Other than that, I mean, still probably good, I would say 12 hours until the impacts start actually being felt in Tampa. And if you are, again, planning on evacuating, today is the day to do so. If you're on the west coast of Florida, today is the day. You do not want to wait beyond today, because otherwise conditions are going to get pretty bad. So if you have plans to evacuate, make sure that you are currently, getting ready to evacuate. So, or at least evacuating now. You shouldn't wait too long. All right. timing, it's currently it's expected to make landfall now as early as tomorrow night. So potentially as early as 8 p.m. tomorrow. It might make landfall there between Cape Coral and Tampa near Sarasota. That's the latest update. So it's either going to make landfall tomorrow night, maybe Thursday morning, but it's going to happen sometime probably between about 6 p.m. tomorrow night up until maybe 4 a.m. or something like that. So. St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is also going to have pretty much the most significant threats out of everywhere. Anywhere from about Tampa back through Cape Coral will have substantial threats in terms of storm surge and whatnot. That is why you're really urged, if you are under any evacuation orders, to make sure that you do evacuate. You do not want to wait if you're in those areas. Those areas are going to see the worst impacts most likely from this hurricane. So. Checking something real quick. Also, again, storm surge is the biggest threat with hurricanes. The other kind of big concern as well is whether, the extreme rainfall, like how much rain you may see out of it. The extreme winds. Again, when this makes landfall, wind gusts could be as high as 150 miles per hour in some areas. Wind gusts, not actual wind speeds, but wind gusts. So really, we could see substantial damage there wherever it makes landfall as a Category 3 hurricane, most likely as it makes landfall. It's either going to make landfall as a Category 3 or even potentially a low-end Category 4. But I think more likely than not, it'll make landfall as a Category 3 or so. So it's a pretty similar instance to Charlie. It's a smidge weaker than Charlie, though, if you ever remember Charlie. But long term, watching this system, could it go into the Atlantic Ocean? Could it take that track that I mentioned before? Could it go across Florida into the Atlantic Ocean like Charlie did? It's really possible at this point. Or will it kind of stay inland a bit more and go through the central portions of Florida? Obviously, the best case scenario at this point is that it were to go through central Florida like that. But obviously, worst case scenario now is that it goes back into the Atlantic Ocean and re-strengthens as it heads towards areas like South and North Carolina. So. Thursday will be the worst in Orlando. Yeah, Thursday most likely, pretty much beginning late Wednesday, but Thursday definitely going to be the worst day most likely for the Orlando area. Yes, Tampa is still at risk for storm surge. It's a little bit lower than before, but it's still very existent at this point. 5 to 8 feet of storm surge is still an extreme amount. It can be life-threatening. 8 to 12 feet is possible a bit further south. So, yeah, I mean, 5 to 8 feet is definitely some pretty significant storm surge still across those areas. So, you want to take that seriously. Honestly, anywhere in the peninsula of Florida will be impacted. The degree of what you're impacted to very well varies where you are. Again, the most significant and extreme impacts will be made to those near the coastline, so between potentially Tampa through Cape Coral, and anywhere along the coastline too as well for storm surge. Definitely going to be impacted pretty substantially. Rainfall across Florida, again, really varies, but highest rainfall totals are currently estimated to be between Jacksonville through about Cape Coral. So basically along the Interstate 4 stretch and off to the north have the potential for the highest rainfall totals, so extreme flooding can be possible in those areas. Tornado potential exists across almost all of Florida, so that's definitely be something to watch for as well. Obviously, tornado threat is still it's not high. It's kind of in like the low to medium stage for the next few days. We're not looking at an outbreak by any means, it looks like, for right now, but we definitely could see a few tornadoes. But yeah, those are basically the biggest things. And obviously, you could see some hurricane force winds as well if you're along the coastline there near Tampa, but we'll see what happens there. Let me go over to National Hurricane Center website real quick. I'm going to take a look and see if there's any new graphics. I know the Melbourne National Weather Service had a decent one yesterday for Central Florida. I'm going to see if they have any others, because that was the interesting. They had some decent graphics. I don't know if they have any, though, right now. Take a look. We have an update this morning on the Central Florida area, but it's nothing that big. There is a flood watch in effect for all of Central Florida, basically. So There's a flood watch in effect for those areas, but other than that, no new updates in terms of everything else. There actually might be on their service in Melbourne. Let me take a look at their website. I have some graphics on here. Trying to see if they have any rainfall graphics and stuff. They typically do. I'm not seeing any. Yeah, I'm not seeing any of that on their website. They typically do, but they don't. Good try. Yeah, Melbourne National Weather Service is typically pretty good about posting some graphics and stuff about the tropical system. I'm not seeing a whole lot of new ones, though, from yesterday. Keep posted, though, if I see any new ones. All right. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate it. Stay safe. This hurricane is annoying. I think, well, really any hurricane can be annoying, especially if it impacts land, you know. It's tough to go through these. Miss K, evacuations kind of vary. I mean, some people can go, you know, to shelters and whatnot that are safe. Some people will, you know, go further north or south, depending on what the hurricane does and whatnot. You know, evacuating the state is also an option. Really, in this scenario, I'm not gonna give advice on evacuations, really, but basically, Western Florida Panhandle doesn't seem to be in a spot where you'll see a whole lot, other than just a few showers. It seems like really the biggest impacts are coming to the peninsula, though. Sure. The Florida Peninsula through the southeastern Georgia area, along the coastline as well, through the Carolinas, we'll see some storm surge, it looks like, as well. See if there's any other questions. Disney World announced they're closing due. Busch Gardens also announced that they're closing due to the hurricane. Did they actually announce that? We'll check. Typically, I hear about this stuff a bit sooner, but I guess I may have not. They haven't announced any official closing, at least from what I know. Busch Gardens may have, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Disney World is still open. That did not sound good. I just broke my chair. This chair is expensive, and I think I just broke something. Oh yeah, sure did. That's exciting. I just broke my chair. This stream has been very interesting. So far, my entire shade fell at the very beginning, if you've been here for a while, and also my chair handle is also broke. In fact, I think it actually just snapped in half. That is not exciting at all. Well, that's unfortunate. There goes my $200 chair. I bought this chair like a few months ago, and that is unfortunate. Chair just broke live on stream. I don't know if you guys can actually hear it. Get you a Herman Miller chair? Yeah, right. I don't have enough money for that. Man, what in the world did I do to my chair? Literally, the whole inside, like, side just absolutely snapped. Come on, I don't know. It's not... I think the screw might just be loose, but I'm not 100% sure. Or maybe it actually just legitimately broke. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I'll take a look after the stream. I don't know what happened, though. My chair just absolutely snapped on stream. That's a new one. Remember when you got a chair, it was a big upgrade? Yeah, the chair was a big upgrade. I'll tell you that. My old chair was like a $50 Costco chair, and it was really uncomfortable. This one's a bit more comfortable, but man, I can't believe it literally just snapped on me like that. It is very loose now. I don't know what happened. It might be just a screw, but I can't tell. I'll have to look after. It doesn't seem like it's just a screw, though. I think it literally just entirely snapped. Kind of unfortunate. Get a Certotan office chair from Walmart. Look that up real quick. I just literally bought this chair, so I'm not really in the shopping market right now for a new chair, but I'll have to take a look into it. Thank you, Ryan, for subscribing. I appreciate it. Bought a $60 chair at BJ several years ago. It's still going strong. Yeah, the one thing is though, for me, you know, as I do all these weather forecasts and streams and stuff like that, I'm always sitting down long time. I don't know how long you will, you know, you sit in an office chair, but like I sit down for hours on end. So it's a little bit different. Busch Gardens is closed from September 27th to 29th on their website. All right, thank you for the report. So I can't fact check that, but at least what somebody said in the chat. Apparently, Busch Gardens is closed. I would assume so much. I mean, that's in the Tampa area. Disney World, I don't know if they'll probably close, but who knows which days they'll close. I have no clue. Just a further reminder, if you're just tuning in for the first time, again, hit the subscribe button down below. Like the live stream if you haven't already. And again, we'll be doing more live streams over the next coming days. I might do a chasing live stream on Friday. Tonight's, I'm going to do another live stream most likely tonight at some point. I don't know what the exact time will be. Depends on how evacuations go for me, because I'm going to be probably evacuating here pretty soon. But I plan on having one tonight. I plan on doing a long one tomorrow. And on Thursday, I'll probably do another one for a while. And on Friday, I may do a little chasing stream. Maybe. So stay tuned. My plan as of right now. No, actually, yeah, I know this key is a little bit of a misconception. This is actually a tornado watch. This is actually for like the lines, like these borders here that you can kind of see on the map. So you see this like red line here near Tampa and Cape Coral. That is a hurricane warning. So yeah, this is actually a tornado watch that's in effect there in southern Florida. A little bit different. Gaming chairs suck. Anything for more than 4 hours? Yeah, gaming chairs are typically not that comfortable. I had one. I wouldn't do one again. Hey, stay safe, Bobby. Stay safe. Yeah, anywhere in Florida, just it's not looking good right now, especially along the West Coast. Yeah, and that specific Disney resorts, that's not all of them. I did see something about that yesterday. It's only a select like few little things. It's not all their resorts or whatever. It's just a few things. I assume they're going to close their park on Thursday and maybe Friday, but we'll see. I don't know what they'll do. I can't tell you. I'm not the theme park meteorologist or like that. No problem, G. Appreciate you tuning in. All right, let me see if there's any other updates that I can get from the Melbourne National Weather Service. I was just curious to see if we had any other stuff coming in. Oh, graphical hazards. There we go. Yeah, at least by the National Weather Service today in out of Melbourne through Tuesday night, they're currently forecasting a low chance for a tornado potential across the eastern central Florida area. That's from about Stuart, Florida, back through Daytona Beach. And also includes like areas near Leesburg, Orlando, Kissimmee, those areas. So they're forecasting a very low chance of a tornado threat. So looking at it, if there's anything else. There's a moderate rip current risk there along the East Coast as well. Obviously, that's kind of a given at this point. Coastal flooding is going to be possible as well. Yeah, that's the latest update there. Do this real quick. Yeah, this is the infrared imagery of Hurricane Ian if you're just tuning in. The eye of the storm is growing, by the way. I'll show you that in a second. Look at the eye, by the way. Yeah, and it is currently a Category 3 hurricane. Sustained winds at 115 miles per hour. Again, it's going to strengthen over the next 24 hours, most likely into a Category 4. Before it makes landfall as a Category 3 on the west coast of Florida, most likely somewhere between Cape Coral and Tampa is currently my thinking as of now, but definitely a crazy storm that we're looking at here that is just now, again, moved over Cuba. It did weaken a little bit over Cuba, but obviously it is expected to re-strengthen as it moves off to the north, and it's going to come pretty close to the just off to the west of Key West. I'm not sure what these islands are, but they are under a hurricane warning. So I do think that there will be pretty substantial impacts there, but I'm not sure where that exactly is. I don't know what the location is, but there are a few islands there just west of Key West that might be impacted. Thanks, Gilson. I appreciate it. Thank you. D, no, not necessarily. When the eye becomes more defined, I mean, this is infrared imagery. It's not the same as satellite. When you look at the satellite imagery, it's a little bit different. Here's a look at the satellite. I'll go and kind of go through the loop here. It's not going to be able to do the entire thing. This is kind of a look at it, though. Once we begin to see a more defined eye, it typically means it's a much stronger hurricane, which we're kind of seeing here. It wasn't overly defined over land, and it kind of become a little bit more defined here on the satellite imagery. Kind of see it a little bit there. Goes a little bit through over clouds and whatnot. So there is an eye of the storm that is definitely trying to develop here. And again, here's a little bit more of a wide view of it, but that's the satellite imagery. What I've been looking at is the infrared imagery. It shows a little bit more of this like open circle, which isn't necessarily completely true at this point, but it's obviously becoming a bit more defined right now. It's definitely trying to develop just north of Cuba. Yeah, Katie, I know. European model has been very consistent, which consistency typically means it's going to be at least somewhat accurate long term. Obviously, there's a difference between consistency and, yeah, I mean, there's like a difference between like consistency and having a consistent, inaccurate model. There's a couple of differences there. My chair is literally broken. I'm kind of annoyed with this. I feel like this armrest thing, it's just completely broken. All right. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, landfall is most likely going to happen between Tampa and Cape Coral. That's the thinking for me, at least at this point. So that's what I'll be at least forecasting in terms of where this will most likely make landfall here in Florida. So, expecting. By the way, if you're just tuning in for the first time, again, friendly reminder to hit the red button and subscribe down below. You're actually only currently 15 subscribers from 19,700. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, I would appreciate it. Also, make sure to like the stream if you've not already as well. And we'll keep you posted with the latest information throughout the week. Be live basically every day, so stay tuned. Anybody have any other questions? Let me know in chat real quick. If you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them. I do need to get food before I have my class, so I'm probably going to end the live stream here in a few minutes, but you'll have another live coverage most likely sometime tonight, this evening, somewhere in that time frame, so stay tuned for that. Be the plan. My expectations for the 2 and 5 p.m. update. My expectations for the 5 p.m. update, at least, is that this cone shifts further to the south and east and really condenses down just to Tampa and Cape Coral region here. Unless something dramatically changes in the next 24 hours, I just don't think we're going to see a landfall up near Cedar Key. I'm kind of surprised it was actually still left in there in this latest update, but I honestly think we're going to see the cone shift further to the south and east. I just don't see it making landfall that far to the north anymore, up there near Cedar Key. So that's my thinking at this point. It's beginning to turn more north-northeast, so it's becoming more and more likely we'll see a landfall probably somewhere here along the west coast of Florida in that hurricane warning box. So again, from about Cape Coral or so, up there about Tampa would be the region that you could potentially see a landfall with this. It does already seem like it's beginning to turn a little bit more north-northeast right now, so we're probably going to see a landfall somewhere, I would say. Honestly, somewhere in this area. It's probably going to be somewhere between Tampa and Cape Coral. I've said it since, 48 hours ago. Somewhere in that region seems realistic, but Kind of what I'm thinking right now. It could go more east. Yeah, it very well could go more east. It's definitely possible. Definitely possible. But honestly, I think the region, though, where it will make landfall will probably be between Cape Coral and Tampa. That's my thinking right now. Go over to this real quick. All right. Cool. Thank you, Sandy, for subscribing, as well as Brent and Wolf. Thank you. Appreciate it. Alrighty. That's going to do it for the stream today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, as always. Again, I'll have another live stream most likely sometime this evening. So if you want to be watching that live stream, a lot more updates are going to come tonight. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure to click the bell icon down below so you're notified when I go live as well. And we'll keep you updated again with the latest on Hurricane Ian as it continues to march towards Florida. Real quick, before you leave, make sure to join our Discord server. That link will be in the chat from Nightbot. If you want to join our Discord server, make sure to join that. Also, follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be posting a lot of content on Twitter over the next few hours in terms of updates, evacuation stuff. All that will be on my Twitter. Make sure to go follow me on Twitter there. Link is in the chat. Other than that, again, just a friendly reminder before you leave, hit the subscribe button. And again, make sure to like the live stream. I would appreciate it. Other than that, appreciate everybody tuning in as always. If you have any other questions, comments, you can try to leave them on a video. I might get back to them if I'm able to. But let me take a look real quick if we have any other updates here. Leave. Just make sure we don't have any others. And nope, no new updates. So yeah, QPC, again, our next weather prediction center outlook will come out sometime later today. So we'll have another update on the rainfall totals that's expected, the track of this hurricane, all that sort of stuff. Again, landfall most likely between Tampa and Cape Coral. But again, that's probably the most likely scenario at this point in terms of where this might make landfall. Appreciate everybody tuning in, though, as always. Again, this is my earliest stream on record, so, welcome to history. You were a part of the most early stream I've ever done. Appreciate everybody tuning in, though. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe if you're in Florida. Again, make sure you're following evacuation orders. Get prepared now. Do not wait. Have a full tank of gas. Have food, water, all that sort of stuff. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you guys all again soon.